Welcome back to the Craftsman's Collective, a podcast designed to help makers in the concrete, wood, and steel industries improve their businesses and lives by discussing our common struggles, tips we found along the way, and how we can combine our unique perspectives to create even more spectacular pieces. I'm doing things a little bit different this time. It's a little bit, I guess we would call it a mini-series. Let's call it the most amazing things that I've ever found that have been great for me ever in the history of ever. Subtitle, leaving out all the stupid shit that doesn't actually help. P.S. For me. Now, apparently you have to put a disclaimer in of some sorts for some of these categories along the lines of if you're overweight and you need to lose some weight and some of these things may affect you adversely, check with a physician or healthcare professional or any of the other stuff. If you decide to try some of these things, you're doing so at your own risk. I am not a health provider, practitioner, or any of the other things that people usually have in those disclaimers. These are just things that have helped me. And if you decide to do some of them, do so smartly, I guess. Despite the name of the mini-series, I didn't want to have anybody have an exaggerated viewpoint of any of these things on the impact that they would have for them. So I wanted to keep it as baseline neutral as possible. If you decide to try any of these things, I really hope they had as much of an impact for you as they did for me. So without further ado, let's get to it. This section is probably going to be the most controversial of all the sections. Everything else, people can argue whether they want to do it or not. But this is the one where people have a pretty closely held belief. So this is my disclaimer. This is my opinion on how I approach design. I've done quite a bit of research on this, and I have found no compelling evidence that's against what I'm about to say. That's not to say that it doesn't exist. I'm just saying this is what it is. If you have a different approach and it works great for you, then I'm happy for you. I mean, that's amazing. Like, to be able to find a way that works for you really well in the design category is really, really amazing. I'm just sharing this because I know that there are a lot of people, well, I can't say that. I can't say that with confidence. I know that there are several people who have had very difficult times with the design aspect because they're looking at it maybe in a way that is not helpful or beneficial to them. So my intention here is to not make anybody feel bad. It's not to say that you're doing it wrong and I'm doing it right. I'm saying this is how I have approached it and how it has helped me considerably. Now, with that being said, this is my approach. So my approach is essentially, or my belief, or I guess you could call it an approach. It's more of a belief, is that it is infinitely more productive to aim for very beautiful and unique pieces than this amorphous idea of original. I don't particularly believe that original in its actual definition really exists in the creative space. It can probably exist in, say, the technology space, but since everything that we make is a derivative or built on everything that has happened before it, it can't truly be original. Now, if you would like to define original as being the first person to combine certain aspects, then fine. That's still technically a remix, but I can understand using it in that sense. Kirby Ferguson, the person who went through and did Everything's a Remix, explains it much better than I can. But that's essentially the idea, is everything that we can make, especially in concrete, is a remix of some kind. So it's much better to focus on making something that is unique and beautiful, because that's a much more tangible thing to actually aim for. Now, that's great, and that's such a high-level amorphous thing, but the question is, okay, but how do you go about doing that? And I think it's actually a lot more simple than people make it out to be. So how do I go about idea generation? This seems to be something that pops up in the forums from time to time, and it seems to be a sticking point for people. I'm going to try and help dispel that a little bit. You can just randomly combine things. Just pick 2 random things, 3 random things, and squish them together and kind of see what happens. You can do it on paper. You can visualize it. take a different style. So what would this look like if I took the contemporary design and I squished it with Scandinavian design? What if I took a sink and combined it with, I don't know, a piece of furniture, but that's already been done several times, but that's conceptually the same thing. What if I took something from a sci-fi novel and squished it into an end table? What if I took something like a sports car and combined it with a coffee table? Like, what are some different things that you can take with take aspects from those two worlds and smush them together and see, like, what does that look like? That's one way to do it. Social media is your friend. Social media is such a great, great resource for this type of thing. Regardless of what platform you use, there's infinite possibilities of what to look for. I like to use an account specifically on Instagram, specifically for gathering inspiration. I only follow things on there that is for assimilating these somewhat disparate ideas into one cohesive field. This is where I think making a list of your unique interests comes into play. So, for example, some of mine are video games, nature, biophilic design, art and anime, and Japan. And then I avoid thinking about original. Doing those things, once I have that list of things, I can figure out, okay, well, how do I combine them? So maybe I can make something new. Maybe I can make a surround for an aquarium or a terrarium of some kind. That's something that I've never seen it done. Not to say that somebody hasn't, but that's something that I could do. It takes into consideration my love of nature and making things out of concrete. Like, I can combine those two things. Maybe I could do a water feature of some kind and add in some different elements. Maybe I can combine an aquarium or a terrarium with a water feature. Combining those things in unique ways allows you to and once you get used to doing that, it becomes much, much easier. So some resources that I would recommend is looking at other industries, because most of the people that listen to this are concrete guys. So we have the benefit of being able to combine so many different things into one thing. We can take sci-fi and we can make a coffee table out of it. We can take traditional designs like contemporary or modern, and we can apply them to different things. We can take different geometric shapes and concepts and combine them with vanities and all sorts of different things. We have that benefit, and we can draw on so many different industries that I don't know that focusing primarily on the concrete industry is in our best interest, because most of the best ideas aren't going to come from our small little industry to begin with. Using books and art books is a really good way to get different ideas. Some of the books that I've used that have helped quite a bit are The Practice by Seth Godin. Again, tons and tons of books and resources and shenanigans. Show Your Work by Austin Kleon. Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. And The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. These are things that have helped considerably for me. And then, of course, art books are going to depend on what type of art you enjoy. I've got everything from digital 3D artist to like Sparth, for example, to different architects. Kengo Kuma, for example. There's tons and tons and tons and tons of different options out there. Get those books so you can have them on hand. You can flip through on a random day and just kind of slowly put them into your subconscious and let your subconscious do the work. That might sound a little hippy-dippy to some people, but you'd be shocked at how well that works. Pay attention when you're watching movies. Look and see if there's something in there that's very interesting that you can assimilate into your design. If you're watching the movie at home, pause the movie and take a picture of it with your phone so that you don't forget. I have tons and tons of pictures of movies, of things that I want to try and add into different pieces of furniture, for example. Dylan Myers did this not too long ago, where he took a picture where he was out and about and just saw something really cool. I think it was like on a sidewalk or the side of a building or something like that, and took a picture of it, and I think he already used it. That was a while ago. But you can find all sorts of inspiration as you're out just walking down the street. You just have to be more cognizant and mindful of what's going on around you and not having your head in your phone. That comes from meditation. to be completely honest, is being there in the moment and paying attention to what's going on. So how does this look like tactically? Like, how exactly do you go about doing this? For me, I like to lay on the floor in the shower and just think. I have a waterproof notebook. I don't have it here with me, but I'll put a link. Waterproof notebooks are amazing. You can use just a regular everyday pencil, or they sell pens that work specifically for it. But I just lay on the floor and think and work through these ideas. How can I combine them? I also do the hot shower meditation, but that's a different thing. And just kind of work through those ideas. What can work together? What can I combine these things? Oh, that's an interesting idea. Maybe I should do that later. And then you just jot it down on that notebook. You could just say Japanese joinery and coffee table, and combine those, and you just have that note, and then you look at that note later. I like to have notebooks everywhere. I've got notebooks in pretty much every room in our house. I have different sizes. I have them for different purposes. Some have blank pages, some have dots, some have lines. I make sure to always have a notebook somewhere so that if I have an idea, I can jot it down. If I'm out and I don't, I just use the Notes app on my phone, and that works really well too. The main thing is just getting all those ideas down on paper. Much higher chance of remembering that later. What I've started to do is actually design items in my head. This took me a really long time to get good at. I mean, this took me 6+ months to get even decent at. Taking all these different ideas and then just sitting there and just going through and kind of moving that item around in 3D space in your mind. Tweaking things. What if I chamfer this edge? What if I add in this detail here? What if I did this type of joinery here? Oh, could I do this? Can I combine this style? And slowly tweak that piece. And then once it gets to a decent enough stage to where I feel confident putting it down on paper or digital, then I'll do so. But I usually like working on things for months just in my head while I'm working on other things that are in the real world, so to speak. That allows me to be working on multiple projects all at one time. And like just when you're standing there in the line at the grocery store, or you're sitting there waiting for your food at a restaurant maybe, you can just sit there and do that design work in your head. It just opens up the door for more chances to come up with more unique things. I know some people aren't visually capable in that way, so this idea might not even work for you. But I think using SketchUp and Fusion 360 is more ideal than paper, because you can move it around in 3D space and get a really good idea for it. I know some people don't have the resources because those programs, well, Fusion 360 at least, is not exactly cheap. And then, of course, you have the time it takes to learn them. So I'm not saying that everybody can do those. I'm just saying that I think that they're a little bit better. They're helpful, really helpful if you can swing it. I'd love to hear if there is anything that has been exponentially more helpful to you than, say, other things, whether it's a traditional advice or something that's a little bit more obscure. Doing that in the YouTube comments or in the forums on Facebook or messaging me directly would be really appreciated. I'm always looking for new ways to improve, and I think doing this together is probably the best way to do that. If one of the books or resources mentioned in the episode would be beneficial to you or someone that you know, and you would like to support this channel, using the affiliate links in the description would be incredibly helpful. Thanks to everyone who listened all the way through. I hope you found something that was beneficial, and I'll look forward to hearing from you in the next episode. Later.